taught at Howard University, and she was saying how, well, the studies are clear that, when they shut down the schools and did at-home online teaching, that the kids from the black neighborhoods didn't always have a computer, and if they did, they had to share it, and the mother worked 2 jobs, and there wasn't someone there to help them, work with the thing, afterwards. And I said, but that was true before COVID. No offense. I'm not saying that there hasn't been a learning gap between students who had in-class instruction and the gap created by COVID. It's clear. But to somehow say, well, it was worse for us because we were poor and black. But you were poor and black before COVID.
Yeah.
That was bad. Don't, in other words, and this is why I can't run for office. Don't flatter yourself. Don't flatter yourself. Everybody's got problems. Republicans don't expect you to actually earn a living.
Well, that's other politicians from stuff in here, so. I mean, you put a bug in someone's ear long enough, they're gonna believe it. So
Content aired on all programs are those of the host and their guests.
I am told I'm getting under the mayor's skin.
Have you what?
I'm getting under his skin.
What's happening? I mean, what's happening in Middleboro and surrounding towns? It's time for the Middleboro Weekend Review with your host, Joey Driscoll. Stay tuned for news, Middleboro news, here on AM 1530 WBBF. Hey,
We got to talk about the Great Molasses Flood too today.
Oh.
3, 2, 1. And good morning and welcome to Middleboro in Review. I'm Joey Driscoll. I'm joined by Don, and I'm joined by a special guest today, Jim DuPont. Good morning, Jim.
Joe, have you lost your mind? Look, I know his dad's here and everything, but Joe, you do understand that, well, you know me well enough by now. We'll leave it at that. Good morning, Joe. Good morning,
Good
Don.
morning.
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Joey.
So before we continue, let's do our weather for today. Currently outside of our Taunton Federal Credit Union studios at 14 Church Green, it is dark and it is 33 degrees outside. Cloudy skies, a little bit of snow leaving Middleboro today, but it's not snowing currently, I don't believe, in Taunton. 36 today, a high of 36, a low of 28. Tomorrow, cloudy skies again. 37 degrees with a low of 27. In Middleboro, like I mentioned earlier, it was snowing, but now it looks like it's not. 36 degrees for the high today, 28 for the low. Snow in the forecast, of course. Tomorrow, possible snow again in the forecast. Again, this is probably just scattered snow showers, as the temperature indicates that probably not going to get a lot. 36 degrees both days. 47 on Tuesday, and the sun is back on Tuesday. Driscoll, North Dakota, 25 degrees with a high of 29 today, a low of 23. And tomorrow, snow in the forecast. Snow seems to be a theme today. Snow in the forecast tomorrow, 25 for the high, 14 for the low. And Driscoll, Texas, 52 degrees, a high of 82.
Don't those people know we have winter?
But they have to deal with 103 degrees in the summer. So
All right,
they should trade off.
Then they deserve it.
Yeah.
82 today, a high of 84 tomorrow, and the sun returns there. So that is your weather for
In
today.
Driscoll, Texas.
That was for Driscoll, Texas.
Very important to say that. Because he's saying 82, and they're like, and then they're like, it's not 82 today. What is he talking about? So you gotta keep repeating, Driscoll, North Dakota, Driscoll, Texas. You always do it. You do a good job doing that, too. It's real important, but you gotta get a call, like, it's not 82. What are you, out of your mind?
I think you'd send the Chamber of Commerce in those towns a bill.
Yeah, think so?
Yeah. I'm thinking of going there right now.
We want to
I'll
drive.
finish the show, Joe. Don't worry.
We want to drive to Driscoll, North Dakota anyway. But there's nothing there in Driscoll, North. There's not a store. There's not a restaurant. There's nothing there. Nothing.
It's halfway between Billings and I believe Bismarck.
Okay, yeah.
Don't quote me on
Not that you know it.
that.
We called a rancher, and he was supposed to call, but he never did. He was going to call in, and we're going to work on that. Try to get somebody from Driscoll, North Dakota, to call in and talk about the town or whatnot. We almost did, but I think he
We'll be working
had
on
second
it.
thoughts. Remember that guy's name?
Sean, I think.
Sean. Yeah.
Maybe you should do a live remote.
Yeah.
From Driscoll, North Dakota?
To get somebody to run the board.
I'll come in and run the board. You go to Driscoll, North Dakota, and get somebody local to tell them about everything that's going on in town. And after the first 2 minutes, I don't know what you're going to say, Joe.
Yeah, a long ride for a 2-minute broadcast, but hey, it's been done before, correct?
Now, don't forget, I'm from Colorado. I'm from the prairie. Everybody says, ooh, Colorado, Aspen, ooh, skiing, Denver, ooh. I'm from the prairie.
What's that, the east side of
The
Colorado?
southeastern part. Colorado's a great big square, and all the way down in the bottom right-hand corner, as far south and east as you can get, and still be in Colorado. Kansas is 60 miles this way. Oklahoma's 90 miles south. That's where I'm from. And you can see rainstorms 100 miles away. And standing in sunlight, you can see rainstorms, and
So,
you can see the next town.
so it's just an extension of Kansas, pretty much.
A boundary is defined as an imaginary line. So
Right.
when you cross the boundary, well, there's a big sign down entering Colorado. Welcome to Colorado. I drove out there, drove through Kansas, but there's nothing.
Wow.
And the further west you go, there's less.
Until you start hitting the mountains.
Well, you can see the mountains a couple hundred miles away. And when I got out here from Colorado, I would tell the kids that I was meeting that, and they was like, boy, this new kid, he's a little strange, a little odd. And my father always stuck up for me because he'd say, you need to know two things. Those are really big mountains. And you know what's between you and those mountains? Nothing. And in 1803, when Pike was out there exploring, see, Lewis and Clark get all the publicity, but Zebulon Pike, he did the southern route. And he could see, there's a monument outside my hometown where he first sighted
What was
him.
the name of your town, you?
Los Animas, Colorado, in Bent County. So Bent County is the size of the state of Rhode Island. The population is 4,000.
Oh.
3,000 of whom live in the actual, it's called a city. We don't have towns. We have cities, we have counties, and that's it. But a city isn't the size. It's, well, you got a mayor, you got a city council, that's it. No town meeting out there.
Wow.
All right.
That's interesting. Anyway, just coming from a different perspective, for sure.
I told you you'd learn something today, Don, and I think Joe's learned something too, which is don't invite Jim to come in on Sunday morning.
So we have a couple of Middleboro things to get to here. First off, there is a psychic fair on January 21st to benefit Theater One Productions. Theater One Productions Inc. will hold their annual fundraiser, which will be this Saturday, January 21st from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Mitchell Memorial Club. The Mitchell Memorial Club is just across the street, pretty much, from where the train station is going to be. Mitchell Memorial Club. Small building. I've never been in it myself, but
That's on Route 28 then, right?
yeah, it's like
Across
right,
the street
right
from-
across the street from the train.
Yeah.
And it's at 29 Elm Street, Middleboro. Doors open at 10:45. There is a $2 cover charge, and a 15-minute readings cost $20. No reservations are accepted, and only cash payments will be accepted. Free parking is available across the street in the Mitchell Club lot. Tarot mediums, palm readers, and more will be featured to help raise money for the productions company's 2023 reopening. Food donations are accepted as well at all theater events for the Middleboro Council on Aging Senior Food Pantry. For more information, you can contact Artistic Director Peg Holzmer at theater1productions@yahoo.com. The event will help the production company in its goal of helping playwrights who are crucial to the success of the theater company.
Wow. That's cool. Thoughts?
Thoughts.
They got mediums, they said?
Mediums,
Yeah.
tarot reading.
Yeah, my cousin's a medium. She's a well-known medium. Her name's Maureen Hancock. And
Maureen Hancock, I've heard of her.
yeah, a lot of people have her. She's pretty.
She's nationally recognized.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. She's done a lot of. She's actually my cousin on my mom's side, and yeah, she. My other cousin Roseanne works with her sometimes, and her daughter Anastasia too, I think, does. And they've all been, doing their thing, and they got their thing on Facebook. But yeah, I mean, it's funny how it was funny too, because I went to the bank in Bridgewater Center, and I saw a girl, one of the tellers that looked like her, and I said, you look like my cousin. I'm my cousin. She says, well, what's your cousin's name? I said, Marie and Argyle. They all know her. You know Marie. I was talking to my cousin. And it was everyone knew her.
She's been told that before, though. I bet that she looks like Maureen Hancock.
Yeah, probably. A little bit. Facial, with the Irish or whatever. But that's pretty, that's a Saturday, right? The 21st? It has to be if it's 10:45 start time. Oh, that's
Maybe
great.
I'll go over, now that I'm sort of at the other end of life, I'll go get my palm read and see what my future should have been.
Yeah, go over there and make sure you bring cash, okay? Right, cash, right? Only, right? Cash only?
Yeah.
You remember
Only have some dough.
the Star Trek movies, they were all the same movie, basically, but every one of them, they go off into space and they have to go back in time, and they miraculously find a planet just like Earth in some previous time in history. And in one of the Star Trek movies, they come back, they get to an Earth that's in the Roaring '20s. And there's Kirk and Spock, Bones, right, and Sulu, the George Takei, what was his name?
Yeah, that was him.
Yeah, and Ensign Sulu, and of course Spock gives his typical, very primitive civilization here, petrochemical internal combustion engine powered personal transportation devices, meaning cars, and Bones says, this is a very backward civilization. They got these carcinogenic combustibles that they're ingesting regularly, meaning cigarettes. And Kirk then says, yeah, I see what you mean, gentlemen. In fact, these people still use money. This was just say money will become outdated. And I thought about it. I said, I very rarely use cash. I use my credit card for everything, and I've been doing that for a while. So when I get my bill for the month, it helps me look at what I'm spending money on. But I think I went to someplace the other day, and it was cash only. And I realized, I said, they haven't got a nickel on me.
It's funny, I actually have cash on me, and the only reason I have cash is because I wanted to tip the girls at the laundromat, when I drop the thing off. And I was trying to customize the tip and make it a little bit more than 20%. And I didn't have, and they didn't.
You do that too, and you have trouble getting it to go in. Yeah.
Well, and then she didn't get nothing. I was like, well, you should brush up on this because you're losing up on tips, because I had no clue. So you just hit 20%, but you try to custom it, and it just turns into a big to-do.
So you got $20,000.
So I went to the ATM and for $10, whatever, because they do a good job and they get the laundry done there early. And I like tipping. I like tipping people who work
I
hard.
always ask the wait service people. I look them right in the eye, and I'm very blunt about it. So I have to ask you a personal question on the tip. Do you get the money if it's on a credit card? Because if you don't, I'm giving you cash.
Right.
Because some of them, when it goes on the credit card, I guess they're pooled, or they add them all up and everybody gets a percentage of it. I said, no, come on.
I don't like seeing that.
You came over here and did the work. You should get them.
I look at my statement and I don't see that pop on. I see what the bill was, and I'm like, well, where'd the tip go? And then the tip goes on late. I don't like that.
You wondered, Don, whether or not they got the tip.
Oh, I had lunch Friday. All right, I met some of the guys on the oil truck Friday. Brand new place, and they have the computer that turns around, and you have to say no tip. So you feel obligated to give them a tip. But you normally, I don't know, a lot of times takeout, you normally don't tip sometimes. It's more of a sit-down thing. If you have $1, you throw it in the dollar thing. But this is getting kind of forced on you now. I mean,
because you're using the credit card.
Because you're using the credit card.
Yeah.
I mean, if I use cash or whatever, but it's just I have to answer all these questions. I just want a sandwich. I don't want to answer your survey. I mean, I really feel that way. If I have $1, I'll throw the buck in the little in the tip jar. I have no problem.
Same thing. When I go to for takeout, if there's a tip jar there on the counter,
They-
the old-fashioned like the piano
Yeah.
players, you know, I'll put a buck into that. But essentially, if I go someplace and you're waiting on me coming over and taking
Yeah.
my order, getting me a drink, is there anything else I can get you? Or, you know, that's what because they don't get paid minimum wage,
Right.
so the tip matters to them.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the whole.
So I don't mind giving it to them, but I don't like if this is going into a pool that somebody else who's kind of going through the motions or a little surly with people, and
Yep.
you've been very nice. I don't think you should have to share that money. With them.
I try to
You did
tip
the work. You
if
should
I
get
have
the
it,
money.
but I don't always have cash. That's the problem. But to have these new computers, like, and they say, you know, and it's put in front of you, 15, 20, 25 custom tip. So, or you got to hit no tip. So
And you hit no tip, you feel like a cheapskate.
that's what they want. That's the thing. But
They want to put the
usually,
guilt on you. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. But in a way, years ago, those industries weren't really a tipped industry. If you think about it.
A lot of them were. No.
Nah, not really. I mean, the sit-down meal, yes, because they're running back and
yeah.
forth. But going
But
to
the
a
service
counter,
industry people, like you talk about going to the laundromat, you know, dropping stuff off at the cleaners.
Right.
That's, no, that was. In fact, I jokingly say when I go to NV Cleaners, I should give them a shout out up here on Route 44 on the way in. By the way, cheapest prices on shirts.
and you always look good.
Thanks very much.
You always suit and tie. I
He's
mean,
being nice. I got a sweatshirt on today, and he was going to say,
Oh.
Jim, I didn't recognize you without your clothes on.
Yeah.
7:22 a.m. We're gonna take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we are gonna switch gears and talk. We have one other Middleboro thing we're gonna talk about on today's show. We're gonna switch gears though. We're gonna talk about the Great Molasses Flood a little bit.
Ooh, yeah.
And that is 104 years ago today. So we're going to talk about that today. Also, we're going to talk about burning season. Open burning season is commenced today.
You have to have a permit.
We're talking about that. Talking about the permits as well. So we'll talk about that. Also, we have a Today in History today. A couple of different Today in Histories. And much more. And also we'll have our sports.
And transportation topic.
And transportation topic.
And music recommendation.
So we have a lot.
Keep rolling, Don. Keep
Yeah.
rolling.
We have a lot to get to.
Yeah, we got a
So,
lot.
Joe,
to
try
get
to keep up. Okay?
Let's
let's
get to our commercial.
Killing our hour.
Let's get to a commercial break. All right, we'll be right back here on Middleboro Review on 1530 AM, 99.7 FM, WVBF.
So this chair sinking down to the floor, is that, you guys sending me a message here?
Is that a good thing? You want me to get that shit so you don't fall?
Oh, this one sinks
You
a lot.
understand, these are the chairs that have been in the old studio. These chairs are probably 30, 40 years old.
Jesus. Someone's gonna break and fall down and hurt themselves. In this.
Well, all I want to say is the chair that Tony Loth has been sitting in did its work. I'm not saying Tony's fat, but he's just big. He's a big guy, you know, like 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah. He must be in Florida now. Is he in Florida?
He is.
Yeah.
All right,
And
so
Mark, I
Where's he?
called
Where's Mark? Portugal?
he's in Portugal. In fact, he's in big time stuff. He spoke at this UN sponsored thing on green energy initiatives that basically included the Atlantic coast countries, the Iberian Peninsula, and some of the Atlantic, Northern African countries, and Cape Verde was there, and a couple others. And he was the only American to address the conference. And after he spoke, these two guys come over to him and says, "Some chief would like to speak with you. Could you come with us?" And he thought he was in trouble or something. They were attachés to the president of Portugal and the president of Cape Verde. Mark then had a 2-hour one-on-one with those guys. Him and those two guys in the room. And they had this like spaceship-sized speakerphone there, and they were talking. Every now and then they would say in their language, you know, "Did you get that? Right, okay. Follow up on it." Because they were asking him, in your government, who did you work through to get these things implemented? Never mind getting the bill passed or what's in it. Who in your government does it? And what would be the equivalent in ours? And And he's now over there working with them, actually implementing some of those green energy things on a national scale. Big time stuff.
Yeah, that seems to be his baby then. But the heat pumps he was pushing, they're not working. They're not pushing out enough heat. A lot of these people are going with the heat pumps, and they're not.
They're very good ancillary devices, meaning you can queue them up and use them. Bill Markson, he owns the self-store over in Lakeville. He's a lawyer.
Yeah.
I worked for Bill. He was a law clerk for a number of years. He's ultimate total cheapskate. And he got a heat pump. According to Bill, it pumps cold air in the summer and warm air in the winter. Now that's true, relatively speaking, but it's not an inexhaustible supply.
No.
And that's the problem with it, that you've got forced hot water, it pumps the water up in there, and as it cools, it comes back down and heats it back up.
We've had a couple cases where people went with heat pumps, so we take them off automatic, you know what I mean? Because we're not going to go in there and give them 40 gallons.
Yeah.
But they're running out. You know what I mean? And they're trying to dictate how we bring them their oil. It's just like, it doesn't work that way anymore. I mean, you're not using the oil, so in a way, we're not really responsible for the burner.
Well, that's what.
We're not really responsible for the burner.
All those heat
40
pumps,
gallons a year.
You have to work them into your heating paradigm. You run them for a little
Right.
while, and then you have to shut them off.
But the only way the oil company can get back at those people who use them, first they want us to be at their beck and call for the oil, and then fix their burner for the hot water, and we're not going to do it.
Okay, here we go.
So we'll let them suffer, and then they'll
Five,
freeze, and they'll come back.
4, 3,
There's always a count.
2, 1, and 0. And we are back here on Middleboro in Review as I turn the music down and switch gears here to burning season, open burning season 2023. It begins today. Open burning is allowed from January 15th to May 1st between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. You must have a permit, of course, to burn. Apply for a permit. You can apply for a permit for Middleboro. Other towns would be different. Other towns, the date might be different. Middleboro, you can go to middleboro.firepermits.com before your burn. Scan the QR code. This is from a Facebook post. You can go on to Middleboro Fire Department Facebook page and you can scan the QR code that they have on the post about this. Manage your account at middleboro.firepermits.com. When conditions are unsafe for burning, the homepage will be updated with a notification. So,
But there's rules about burning. You can't just say, okay, I got the permit. Yeah, I guess that you have to have fire suppression. You've got to have some, you can't let if the fire gets out of control or gets beyond what you planned, you have to have some sort of means there to suppress it. You can't say, oh, let me call the fire department now. You can't rely on them for that, and you got to be so many feet from any dwellings, and like they said, I guess that because of wind, Joe.
yes.
Imagine they on a day-to-day basis. In Rainier, the way it was is you call them in. For a while, we were making people go down and get a permit, and when I was selecting, we changed it so that all you had to do was call them up, give the residential address to start the season, and call up, give them your name and address, fine, you're all set. But you're understanding what the rules are, and you had to call every day when you were going to burn. You had to call, and said if you didn't have a permit, your call would basically get you one, so you didn't have to say I can't burn today because I got to go tomorrow to get the permit. But the fire department was just trying to say all we're trying to do is make sure that people know that there's some rules to this.
Yeah, if the wind's blowing.
And if it's too
You
windy,
can't
don't do
burn
it.
it.
I mean, just please, because you might think, oh, it's not too bad, but those fire departments are a lot like highway departments. They monitor the weather pretty good, and they'll tell you, well, it might not be windy now, but there's this gusty wind or whatever, and a couple hours from now it's going to be 45, 50 miles an hour, and your little fire is going to flare like this. And then your shed, and then the tree, and then your house.
Embers everywhere.
And then you're going to call, thank you. And then you're gonna call us, and
It
this
was
is,
everywhere.
we got plenty to do without people doing that for us, you know.
Okay, switching gears to the Great Molasses Flood. Now, a little bit about the Great Molasses Flood. Known as the Boston Molasses Disaster, was a disaster that occurred on January 15th, 1919 in the North End neighborhood of Boston. A large storage tank filled with 2.3 million gallons of molasses, weighing approximately 13,000 short tons, burst, and the resultant wave of molasses rushed through the streets at an estimated 35 miles per hour, killing 21 people and injuring 150. The event entered local folklore, and residents claimed for decades afterwards that the area still smelled of molasses on hot summer days.
I guess it was a really serious disaster that people were literally kind of. They said, imagine you're walking down Main Street, or you're walking down downtown Middleboro, walking down Main Street, walking down Center Street, and all of a sudden an 8-foot wall of boiling molasses. Because I guess the stuff was like 160 degrees. It was very hot. And it was like molten lava, and there were and you couldn't outrun it because would you say it was, Joe, 35 miles an hour?
35 miles per hour?
Yeah, it was. You know, I'm a pretty good runner for an old fat old guy, but I can't run 35 miles. In fact, didn't I see that stat last night on one of those runbacks that Jacksonville had? That the guy scoring the touchdown, they said he was running 20.9 miles an hour. Now think about that. That's an NFL wide receiver outrunning the safeties, and he's running 20.9 miles an hour. And here was this wave, I guess it was like 6-8 feet high, coming down because the buildings were holding it, being like a chute.
Yeah.
North End, we know North End, the streets,
Yeah.
you know, and you look up and there's this thing. You try to get out of the way. There were people that would kill people.
And most tanks are in high positions too. I bet that was elevated, so everything was going downhill.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's no place to escape. And it's funny too because I remember in the 70s, especially downtown Cross and South Station, you could smell a sweet smell from the subways. And I think that had a lot to do with it because a lot of the subways were being put together at that point in time. The Red Line was almost, it wasn't the Red Line then, but I mean, they called it the Dorchester.
Called it the Ashmont line.
Yeah, the Ashmont line,
Yeah.
and then the Harvard line. But a lot of that went in on the ground, and even up to the 70s, that you could smell it. You could smell it. You could smell it when on hot days. You could smell it in the subways up to I remember smelling it. And my father's girlfriend Barbara, who used to take me to Jordan Marshall a lot.
Huh?
Yeah, and I wanted to go because I like the trains. I like the subways, and she went. She always closed her eyes when she went over the bridge because she was afraid of bridges, the Ponce Bridge. But you could smell it, and I said, "What's that smell? What's that?" And she told me it's the Great Molasses Spill, 1919, and it's still. And that smell stayed until they redid all the stations. They refitted all the stations, like in the 2000s and whatnot. But I remember that smell.
Well, I
as a
guess the
child.
cleanup took weeks because the molasses solidified.
Right.
And the stuff was hard as a rock.
Right.
And they were literally using chains, they were using saws and axes, and it took them weeks just to get the street clear.
Right.
And the people, you could get in and out of the buildings from the back and all that, but the main streets of the North End, that one, because they showed the picture, it was like a great big wooden barrel, as I recall. It wasn't even steel.
Right.
It was like a big, cracker barrel.
But the smell is 60 years later. I mean,
believe that.
79, 78, 79. That's when I used to go in with my father's girlfriend Barbara, and I used to always go. We used to go almost every weekend because she wanted to go shopping, and I wanted to ride the Red Line. So I went. She always bought lunch. It was whatever. But I could smell it. I could really smell it. The smell was sort of overwhelming sometimes. And
On the hot days.
yeah,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
60 years later. So everything that seeped into the ground stayed there. So that's funny.
How many million gallons, Joe?
2.3. Wow.
Think about your oil tanks you fill up, Joe. You're putting like 400 gallons here or there.
Yeah, I mean,
my 13 million sound.
my truck holds.
That's how big that big container was.
My truck holds 32 million gallons. If I ever let go, that'd be a disaster. That'd be a disaster on its own.
All right, it is 7:35 a.m. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Get this commercial break out of the way here a few minutes early. And we'll be right back. We'll talk about our transportation topic. We'll talk about our musical recommendations and our sports and our today and histories in the next segment. You're listening to Middleboro Review on 1530 AM and 99.7 FM. We'll be right back.
No, I could smell it.
That thing made international news and actually got to be a political issue in the city of Boston. That, people said, they really landed on Boston Special Services for that because 20 hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
It says you're going to put 13 million gallons of molten molasses in a wooden barrel up on the stanchions 20 feet above the building. It was not a steel container.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things, and the whole North End. You're right. That changed the political structure there. It affected the mayor's race. It wasn't James Michael Curley. That's when the Boston Irish are taking over. All them guineas up there in the North End, screw them wops. Screw them.
Well, they just why it took its population more Irish than Italian. It's only a matter of time.
Talk about your name, Driscoll. In the heyday of the Boston Irish, they would go out to campaign. It was called a stump speech. Because back then, nobody didn't have radio. And they would literally find a tree stump, and he would stand on it, and he would start speaking, trying to gather a crowd. He'd have campaign workers pass, or a soapbox. They called it getting up on your soapbox. And the Boston Irish would all, if you were a representative of O'Brien, Joe O'Brien, and somebody took papers out against you, whose name was William Sullivan, you went out and found another William Sullivan, just put him on the ballot, divide the other guy's vote.
Really?
Yeah. And and that's why the Boston Irish, when they concluded their stump speeches, would always say, "Be sure to vote for number 7 on the ballot." They would give the number because many of the Boston Irish were illiterate, and they say that's Obrien, because the opponent had put an O'Brien Y-A-N or something. Well, the story goes that the Boston Bicycle Squad raided a brothel the day before the election. Herald comes out that day. Representative O'Brien nabbed in brothel raid. The editor picks up the phone and it's Representative O'Brien. He's white hot. "I demand you correct your story. This is an outrage." And the editor says, "Representative O'Brien, talk to my reporter. Facts are correct. We stand by our story." He says, "I don't give a damn about your story. Spell the name right." Thus the phrase, "Say what you want about me, but spell the name right." But if you press is press.
Right.
All right.
See the benefits of a liberal arts degree in history? I play Jeopardy for money, so.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And we're back here on Middleboro Review as I turn the music down. There we go. And yeah. All right. Let's get to our sports. Really only going to focus on
football night last night, Joe.
really only going to focus on one thing, and that is the NFL. Very interesting day one of the wild card weekend. Seattle lost to the 49ers. They put a valiant effort that first half.
To a rookie quarterback.
Very, very good effort for the Seahawks in the first half, but once the 49ers got together,
Yep.
boy,
Once they got their act together.
they got together.
They did.
Yep, and really dominated that second half. And at certain points, it just made Seattle fall apart. They made costly penalties, and it cost them the game. 41-23 loss to the 49ers. But it seems like the Seahawks may have found their quarterback of the future with Geno Smith.
He did play a good game.
Did play a good season. honestly,
Look at
altogether.
the playoffs. Nobody picked him you know, when he showed up at quarterback, everybody was saying, "Where's Russell Wilson when you really need him?" sorry, Don.
I like Russell Wilson. I think
I know that hurt. So
I think he's a class act. I always liked Russell Wilson.
I'd like to see him with a Patriot uniform on, if you want my honest opinion.
We'll see what happens.
We're never going to see Tom Brady as a Patriot again, ever.
No, I don't think that.
Come on, Joe. Russell Wilson. I mean, probably need armed guards to get on and off the field, but
No, I think people would.
he'd fit into the system because he's got
He would.
that. You know, Mac Jones is still learning, holds the ball too long, makes some ill-advised throws, but they kept him on a short leash. They kind of didn't
That's
let
what it
him
seemed
throw.
like that last game. He was just like, he needed a written invitation to throw the ball. That's what it seemed like when he was playing. It's just, you know, it's just he held on to it way too long. I just, you gonna throw it? Are you gonna throw it? Are you gonna throw it now? Okay, maybe not.
When they talk about the elite quarterbacks, you know, of course Tom Brady, but they got that down. You got about 3 or 4 seconds, for sure. After that, you're kind of on your own, and if you've got more time than that, well, that's when you know they say, "Wow, look at all the time he had." That inevitably results in a player downfield getting open, because I don't care how good a cornerback you are, the receiver has the advantage.
Yeah.
You know? And they start playing zone a little bit, and you just shift to the other guy's zone. The player that's covering it doesn't pick you up, or that pulls him off of somebody, creates another opportunity. But Mac Jones, they said he regressed, but I don't think he regressed. I think the play calling regressed. I think they, for some reason, said, let's go with the short game, the high percentage passes, which was an old Dan Marino thing. You know, little 6-7 yard passes, 2 or 3 of those, and you got a couple first downs. And that opened, but you know, to get that, you had, what didn't they say it about the 49ers game? It said if you don't run the ball, then the secondary, you know, can just go back and defend the pass. But if you're running the ball, they got to have those middle linebackers. They got to stay closer to that line, which opens up the middle, and there's that sweet spot between the safeties and the linebackers. So, but Mac Jones, I think the play calling this year held him back more than anything, because he can throw. He's still learning, but I don't know. I'd ask Joe Driscoll this question, because you understand what I think I might know about politics is this big, Joe. Don.
They got to pony up some
Compared to
dough.
what he knows about.
They got to pony up some dough for a real. I mean, I'm not calling Mac Jones not a real quarterback, but they got to pony up. If they want a championship, they got to pony up.
They really do.
They got to pony up some dough for somebody.
They've got some position weaknesses on the offensive line too.
They got a certain quarterback who was on the market that they should take a shot at. I mean, I know his
Who's that?
Got somebody from up where in Wisconsin somewhere.
his ego may be a little bit too much for some, but I think it's a shot that needs to be taken.
Who?
Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, okay.
I think it needs to be looked at for Aaron Rodgers to possibly become a Patriot. It needs to be looked
I don't
at.
see Aaron Rodgers showing up in Green Bay next year. I see him moving, but I don't know if he'll be the Patriots. But he's the kind of guy, because of how good he is, he can kind of write his own ticket. He can just walk into any one of the other 31 teams and say, "Here I am," and he starts. If he walked into Tampa Bay, he could start.
I like the Russell Wilson. I always liked Russell Wilson. I always thought the guy was a class act. You don't want to hear about him getting in trouble or having issues, or it's
He's
just
had to play football. Yeah.
he's here to play football, and that's it. I think his private life's his private life, and he doesn't spread it out like you hear about other players. But
And he doesn't air his differences in the public. Somehow Mac Jones evidently talked to some people about getting some he wasn't asking them to come in and call plays, but he wanted somebody to. The story I read was that he had contacted coaches that he knew in the league, because he'd been in football for a while. And a lot of some of these coaches were people he played with and knew, and he he kind of wanted somebody to go have a talk with Matt Patricia and I'm trying to think of the other offensive coach, but he said, just can you come in and talk to these guys? They seem to be struggling a little bit.
why is Matt Patricia offense? He should be defense. That's what he's always been good at, and they decided, they got to reinvent the wheel and put Matt Patricia in the offense?
I'll answer that, because they said Bill Belichick, don't forget, was considered a defensive genius. And as such, they said, how does it that when he came to the Patriots, suddenly, the Drew Bledsoe era, the Tom Brady era, the offense erupted. It says because Belichick could tell you what you needed to defeat a defense. What's the best defense is good offense.
Right.
And then theoretically, guys who know a defensive scheme can say, okay, offensively, this is what we're going to do to get around that. That and the theory. I haven't been on the sidelines, Don. I haven't been on the field, but
Right.
that was I guess a couple of.
Well, it seemed to work for the Patriots because they won for so many years with and then now all of a sudden with Brady gone, do the math. You know what I mean? Brady
He says that Patriots are 50-50.
Yeah.
Since
Yes.
in the Tom Brady era, the net 3 years, they are 500. It's a 500 team, not even a playoff team. And I don't know, they typical with some teams that have got talent here, talent there, and then all of a sudden they string together a series of good plays. Wow, this is great, and then the stupidity, a fumble, a sack, all right, an open receiver missed. And, you know, because didn't Patriots, weren't they like 29th in the red zone this season? Whereas before, the Patriots, their defense was tops in the red zone. You did not, you got field goals against the Patriots, and Bill Belichick said, that's fine. Field goals keep you in a game, touchdowns win them. But the Patriots had one of the best percentages in the red zone in the Tom Brady area, and that's gone.
It's hard to beat the Tom Brady era.
Yeah, and
Never bet
if
against him.
it wasn't for their defense, they would be right at the bottom of the AFC East. Honestly, they just had a poor season.
Matthew Judon. I remember I was sitting here in the studio when they were getting ready to do my show, and this young man over here, Don, burst through the door. I think the show was underway, and I was at the news, and had a news break or something going. Was it 20? Yeah, it was 20.
20.
Yeah, and he burst through the door. This would have been March or April. This was early on. You know, I think the training camps were just getting lined up, and he burst in the door and said, Patriots just acquired Matthew Judon. Now, I'd heard of the guy, and I said, I heard he's pretty good. But he proceeded to read me what you call the litany. He said, well, what's Matthew Judon capable of? And he gave me a few of these things, and he says, when they play anybody now, their quarterback better get rid of that ball real quick, or he is going to be looking up at this guy.
Like I said, we're talking about the soapbox. When he gets on the soapbox about something, he's just like, listen to me. Listen to me. You know, and he tells you. So
Now I'm gonna get on my.
When he talks sports, I listen.
Now I'm gonna get on my soapbox about a certain team. Chargers. Why?
The chokers.
Why? Why? How did that happen?
The deadbolts.
Disaster, to say the least. The Chargers were up 27-0, and they were outscored 31-3. Horrible. Not a great game for the Chargers. The Jaguars will move on. Probably they'll lose in the divisional. I don't know. Maybe the Jaguars win the Super Bowl.
Don't forget, though, that 3 of those scores, 2 of them were direct results of interceptions, which means that the offense didn't advance the ball the other 60 yards, and then they managed to pull up another 20 and get a touchdown. They were starting, one interception was on the 14-yard line or 15-yard line. I mean, when you give the other team the ball inside the 40, I don't care what defense you are, they're going to get some points. So you take away at least 2 touchdowns, maybe the field goal, because that was on an interception return. That I said that their offense really didn't do that well. Jacksonville, don't forget, they began the season, what were they, like 1-6 at one point in time? But then something happened down there, and they string together like 8 consecutive wins against over 500 teams. All of a sudden, you just said making fun of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Everybody was saying, I don't know, and
Trevor
Tom Brady
Lawrence
and a
had
few
to
other
play
people
like
looking over
outcasts.
there saying, these guys are coming. So I wouldn't count them out too soon.
All right, so that's sports. Let's finish up saying history real quick. Get this out of the way. 1967, the first Super Bowl was played in Los Angeles. The Green Bay Packers defeat the Kansas City Chiefs 35-10. Our birthdays: 1716, Philip Livingston, American merchant and politician, signed the Declaration of Independence, one of the signees, one of the founding fathers of the United States. 1929, I do have this one. Martin Luther King Jr., American minister and activist, Nobel Prize laureate. Of course, tomorrow is MLK Day. 1948, Ronnie Van Zant's birthday, American singer-songwriter. 1970, here comes the money, Shane McMahon. His 53rd birthday is today. American wrestler and businessman. He is the son of Vince McMahon. In 1979, Drew Brees, American football player and now assistant coach for the Purdue Boilermakers. Passings on this day, 1950, Henry H. Arnold, American general, holding the ranks of General of the Army and later General of the Air Force. Arnold was an aviation pioneer, Chief of the Air Corps from 1938 to 1941, commanding General of the United States Army Air Forces, the only United States Air Force general to hold a 5-star rank, and the only officer to hold a 5-star rank in 2 different U.S. military services. And 2020 on this day, we lost Rocky Johnson, the father of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So that is your today in history's birthdays. Yep. And passings on this day. All right, our musical recommendation, Don. You start.
Okay. I don't think we're gonna have a transportation topic here because that's getting dead. But we'll do music because those will take us in.
Yeah.
Mark Deep Purple. Okay. And Jim, I'm sure he knows Deep Purple. It's been around since 1968.
Oh yeah, Motorhead. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay.
I'm with you.
The Mach systems and how Deep Purple rates their band changes. So you got Mach 1. Tell me who the Mach 1s are.
Mach 1. Ian Gillan.
No.
Sorry.
No.
Ron Evans. Ron Evans.
Yep. Singer. Joey.
He's digging
sorry.
deep now, Don.
You-
You got it.
I need a
Nick
list.
Simpler on bass.
I'm sorry, I need a list.
The
No,
one
you
guy
don't.
with the
Nick-
computer is
Yeah,
getting
okay.
it wrong.
No, listen to me.
No,
Listen
I
to me.
need
You
a
don't
list
need the
in front of me.
computer, okay? Ron Evans on guitar, on vocals. Dick Simpler on bass. Richie Blackmore on guitar.
Richie Blackmore.
John
Bow your
Lord.
heads.
John Lord on keyboards in organ, and Ian Pace on drums. They did.
Yes.
They did 3 albums. Okay, and then Mach 2 came along, which Nick Simpler and Rod Evans were fired, and Ian Gillan and Roger Glover. That was Mach 2. Mach
Yes.
2 did another 4 albums. Then came Mach 3, where Ian Gillan and Roger Glover got fired, and they brought in David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes.
Yes.
That's right,
One
Coverdale.
of my
I
favorites.
forgot
Yeah.
about Coverdale.
And then
Yeah.
and then the 2 albums after that, Burn and Stormbringer, Richie Blackmore left to go
Very
join
nice.
Raper, and they brought on American guitarist Tommy Bolin, the first American to be in Deep Purple.
Man
He
from
came-
T-Rex.
He came from James Gang too.
Yeah.
Okay. And and then they did 1 album, and then the band disbanded. Then Tommy Bolin died later on that year in '76. 2 bands formed from Deep Purple: Rainbow with Richie Blackmore running James Dio,
Mhm.
Cozy Powell, and Whitesnake. And Ian Pace and John Lord, and David Coverdale were on that first Whitesnake album in 1977.
Yeah.
Now 1984 comes along, Mach 2 again. Okay, Ian Gillan, Roger Glover, Ian Pace, Richie Blackmore, and John Lord. Okay, they do 2 albums. They do Perfect Strangers in 1984. They do House of Blue Light in 1987. That's Mach 2. Then Ian Gillan has problems with Richie Blackmore. Ian Gillan leaves the band, and they put another album out with Joe Lynn Turner from Rainbow. Okay, that is technically Mach 5 because Mach 4 was with Tommy Bolin.
Fair
Mach
enough.
3.
I'll go with that.
Okay, so they do the album. They do the tour. They get rid of Richie. They're not Richie. They get rid of Joe Lynn Turner, and who comes back? Ian Gillan. Okay, Battle Rages On, 1992. So that album comes in, and there's Mach 2 again. Okay, and then he leaves. He doesn't leave, but the tour Richie Blackmore quits, and they bring in Joe Satriani, guitarist, to finish the tour. And then you want to finish it, Joey? Because you're better than me with.
Oh, and then of course after that we had albums like Perpendicular
Which
in the
brought
90s.
which brought in who for the guitarist?
That was why am I forgetting the names here?
You're terrible. You're the one who taught me all
I'm
this.
bad, I
Because
know.
you're old. Wait till you get old. You can't
I'm bad, I
remember
know.
things, John. Tell us.
Steve Morse.
Steve Morse, yes, and Steve Morse left the band.
You're jumping ahead of yourself though, there, Joe.
But
You missed
we'll get to that in a second.
You missed the middle.
So Perpendicular, we had
so that's
Abandoned.
technically
That's
Mach 6.
That's Mach 6.
Mach 6.
yes, Mark 6, Bananas, Rapture the Deep, Now What, Infinite, Whoosh, and then their cover album that they did.
But then John Lord left at Bananas, before Bananas, and Don Airey came in. So
Yeah.
that's your Mach 7. And some people would say that's Mach 8 because Mach 6 was with Joe Satriani, technically.
Mark, the current Mark we have now
Mhm.
is Morse left, and Simon McBride is now a part of the band, who is formerly of the band Sweet Savage.
So they're technically Mach 9?
Mark
8.
8 or 9, I'm
That's
not
eight,
sure.
I think, Don.
I think that's
I'm
eight.
counting 8.
Well, you got Joe
I think it's
Satriani, which I'm not sure. He just did the tour.
He did not do the studio. He did the tour. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he just
Yeah,
did the
he
tour.
just did a tour.
So
With-
he
with
doesn't count.
Deep Purple.
He ain't a Mark. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
It's just kind of a little technical glitch there.
I don't know.
All right.
My music recommendation is the band Uriah Heep, who also has technically is in one of the members is technically in the Glenn Hughes tree because Peter Golby was the singer of Trapeze, and Trapeze was the band that Glenn Hughes sang with for quite a while, for a couple albums, and then he left. But Peter Golby came in for Trapeze's last album before they broke up, disbanded. But Peter Golby was a part of Uriah Heep. A lot of different members. Ken Hensley. And they just have a fantastic band. They still do. They're still playing. Mick Box is the only original member left. They have a lead vocalist. His name is Bernie Shaw, who has been in the band since 1986. Drums, Russell Gilbrook. Backing vocals and on bass is Dave Rimmer. And Phil Lanzon on keyboards. Fantastic keyboards.
Did you listen to Harry?
Well, I'll tell you right now about Uriah Heep. Back in the and Deep Purple. I'm a musician who came of age in the '60s, and rock music was beginning to not bifurcate, try quadruplicate. And when Deep Purple came out, and that album came out with Highway Star. If you were a guitar player, you knew right then and there you weren't going to be playing the songs by the Archies or the Monkees ever again. You were going to get out there and play that hard pounding like a sledgehammer in the chest.
Machine Head revolutionized music.
That changed that whole. They talk about the fathers, the progenitors of heavy metal. That was it. That was the seminal album. Now Uriah Heep came along, and they had this absolute manic lead vocal over this, just because they had a sort of I guess you would call it an FM hit. I don't know if it charted top 40 or not, but it was called Easy Living. And that was like their seminal hit. But when you got the albums, because back then you'd hear a song, and most albums before that, before the Beatles, you did an album and had a hit, and then they had 10 songs on it that were covers or standards, because the record industry said, who's going to buy an album with 10 songs they haven't heard? And the Beatles said, well, they'll buy our albums. And they were right. So Uriah Heep came out with, was it Wizards? I think of the name of the album with Easy Living, and there's a song called Stealin'.
Was there another song called Lady in Black or something?
Lady in Black. That was
I
it.
mean, it was totally different than like the radio would be.
It was just not but the guitar playing was this on fire. It was fuzz tone, but it wasn't this out there space stuff like Hendrix. But it also wasn't this carefully calculated stuff like Clapton. It was this in between. It was manic. It was just like a snake coming through, but on steroids, zipping around. Thus, they were the first band, Uriah Heep, that was just, the guitar player was described as shredding. That it was like taking a paper shredder.
And that was like 74, 73?
74, 73, yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of Lady in Black, I think that was a song that was covered by Glenn Hughes on, I believe it was some sort of tribute album that Glenn worked on. I think Ken Hensley was on it too, and that was the song he covered.
The
Very
one
interesting song.
Uriah Heep song that Glenn Hughes covered?
Yes,
Okay.
that was interesting. I just wanted to mention that. All right, it's 8:01 a.m. We're gonna go. We're past our time. I want to thank Jim DuPont for coming in today. I want to
Thanks for
thank
having me,
Don as
Joseph. I had a lot
always.
of
I want to thank Jim for coming in too, because I got him his coffee and his coffee roll. So I did my contract. I made sure it's just like the green M&Ms. You know what I mean? For Van Halen, no green M&Ms or no red M&Ms. I read the contract and I fulfilled the contract to the letter.
And I want to say, of all the free coffees that I've gotten today, that was probably the best one.
All right, it is 8:01. We're going to go to the news. Then we're going to go to Bread of Life
All right.
with Pastor Ortez Van Cross. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Bread of Life. But first, the ID and then the news. This is WVB at 1530 AM, 99.7 FM. And this has been a Bar Review. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Now we're off here. I'll give you my musical recommendation. And hear these words. In 1970, a rock band came out, the name of which was Band.